All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rocky Top Insider postgame show. Today, this is Ryan Shumpert. I am Rick Butler. Tennessee defeats Texas A&M by a score of 86-51 right here in Knoxville. We got a lot to talk about from this game, but Tennessee picks up their 21st win on the season. Rick Barnes also picks up his 800th career win as a head coach. Ryan, the first thing I want to talk about today is defense. I thought Tennessee's defense was stifling. You wrote about this, so I want to ask you sort of about it. It wasn't just that Tennessee's defense was good. Obviously, there is an element of this that goes hand in hand, but they really shut down Texas A&M's offense. Everything for the Aggies seemed like it was difficult to come by tonight against Tennessee's defense.
You're 100% right, and just more than that, it felt like they took A&M out of what they wanted to do and what A&M does well. And look, it's not a great offensive team, but A&M comes into the game. I think they were averaging 6.5 made threes a game. Well, A&M makes 5 threes in the first half, and you might, you just hear that stats like, oh goodness, here you go again. Same thing that happened to them 2 weeks ago. Well, A&M took like 24 threes. I mean, they were just they didn't even shoot a good percentage in the first half. So Tennessee forced them into shooting way more threes. Buzz Williams said that he kind of felt like they got baited into it a little bit.
And hook, line, and sinker for the country folk out there.
That's exactly right.
Go and watch the press conference.
Yeah, and then two things A&M does really well offensively. They get to the foul line, and they offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
I think A&M shot like 4 free throws in the first half. It was around 15 for the game, not a ton, against a Tennessee team that typically fouls a lot because of how physical they play. And then on the offensive rebounds, I mean, A&M comes in this game. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the country. I think 42% of their offensive rebounding percentage. Tennessee held them like 17% today. So that was a huge emphasis coming from last game, huge emphasis at practice yesterday. So Tennessee, not only did they shut down A&M, but it felt like they followed the formula. They took away what A&M wanted to do well, and they forced them into a game that they just weren't going to be capable of winning.
Absolutely. I think with just a couple minutes left in the game, Texas A&M scored 24 points in the second half. Pretty sure they only had 18. They made a couple shots there at the very end, but for a large period of that second half, Tennessee had Texas A&M just to the 10-20 range right there. So that was really impressive by Tennessee's defense tonight. Going to the other side, though, maybe more of a complete game, and Zakai Ziegler was phenomenal for Tennessee. Man. He ends his game, get this, 9 points, 9 rebounds, 14 assists. Just a phenomenal game by him. What did you see that allowed him to be so successful?
I mean, he was just in complete control. I mean, it was, if you're a basketball fan, you like watching point guard play. I mean, he was just fantastic. And, Rick Barnes and coaches as a whole, they talk all the time about affecting a basketball game when you don't shoot well. And Zakai didn't shoot well tonight. He shot 3 of 10 from the field, missed a couple bunnies in the first half that he'd have to he'd want back. So, I mean, he was just spectacular besides that. To have a game in college basketball where you have 14 assists, that on its own is insane. To do it with 0 turnovers, I mean, just unbelievable. 4 steals. I mean, it was just a game you kind of I'm like right now, I'm not doing a good job describing it. It's hard to put into words just how in control he was. One of the best games he's played in a Tennessee uniform.
Yeah, and I thought he was just all over the place, especially from a defensive side. And Rick Barnes talked about it. He said, hey, look, this is stuff we've seen before, but you saw so many opportunities throughout the game where Zakai Ziegler would make a play in transition defense, or he would just cut off a pass, and it almost make you sit there and go, well, why would that player throw it if Zakai Ziegler was able to pick it off so easily? But those were sort of just his instincts throughout the game that lets him be in a great position. Again, he was phenomenal. They did have a funny moment after the game not after the game, but just during post-game press conferences where talking about, hey, it looked like Zakai Ziegler maybe wanted to stay in the game a little bit. Rick Barnes pulled him out at the very end. But regardless, even though he comes up just close to a triple-double, it was every bit as impressive as one of the box score.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that's the funny thing. If you'd gotten triple-double for 5'9" guy, it might be the first time ever to get a triple-double with 10 rebounds than anybody in college basketball history.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other players that I thought really was impressive, and this has been a common trend throughout the season so far, but Tennessee's at its best when Jonas Adu is able to do what he can do on the offensive end. He starts out his game with a couple of mid-range jump shots. I felt like that sort of got him into a good groove. And then Buzz Williams, Rick Barnes both talked about it, just his sort of tenacity inside, being able to be a force, being able to play with power. Obviously, that was a big difference maker for Tennessee.
100%. I felt like he played with a lot of aggression, a lot of physicality, and you said it. Tennessee's typically at their best when Jonas Adu plays really well, and he played pretty poorly 2 weeks ago in A&M, as most people did on this Tennessee team, and he was really good tonight. Just consistent, efficient, shooting the ball, good on the glass. I think blocked 2 or 3 shots. So he was really good. And I even go broaden out what you said. I mean, I think Tennessee's 3 best players are Jonas Adu, Dalton Knecht, Zakai Ziegler. Tennessee will be at their best when those 3 guys play well. All 3 of them played really well. Dalton or Connect had 24 points, grabbed 7 rebounds or so, shot the ball really well, especially after kind of a quiet offensive start. Just a really good performance from him, a really good performance from all 3 guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You could tell how they were working in sync. And I did think that Buzz Williams did have a fascinating comment. He said, there's a lot of different things that make this engine for Tennessee go, but certainly Zakai Ziegler is one of them. You can just see how these other guys feed off of him. Ryan, any other kind of final thoughts real quick on this game? I do have one question about the bigger picture before we get out of here today.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on a little bit talking about how much A&M scored in the second half. The game was tied with 4:30 left in the first half. From that point on, final, what would that be, 24-30 of the game, just about Tennessee outscored Texas A&M 62-27.
Yeah. I almost didn't even remember to talk about that. It was a close game at one point, because it was. I mean,
yeah, you don't think of it when the game ends 35 points.
Especially when the final 20 minutes was just so dominant. And then you can even take maybe the last 5 minutes of the first half and add that in as well. But speaking of that, Santiago Vescovi hits a huge three-pointer right here from this corner, right as time was expiring, going into halftime. Again, that didn't necessarily spark anything, but it was part of a massive run that sort of eclipsed both the end of the first half and the start of the second half that put Tennessee in position where they needed to be.
13-3 to end the first half, 12-5 to start the second half. So 25-8.
There you go.
Right around about 9.5 minutes around halftime.
All right, Ryan, as we sit here talking right now, there's a two-way tie atop the SEC rankings. Tennessee and Alabama, both 11-3 in conference play. Where do we go from here? There's 4 games left on the regular season schedule. All 4 are going to be against top 25 teams. So while Tennessee does control their own destiny, it's a tough road ahead.
Very tough road ahead. Obviously, those 2 will meet next Saturday night in Tuscaloosa, a college game. They will be there. That's a huge game. I think Tennessee's got a little bit of a harder schedule. Auburn at home this midweek. Go to South Carolina after the Alabama game. Then Kentucky at home in the regular season. But Alabama's schedule is still hard too. They play at Ole Miss midweek, Tennessee the weekend. Go to Florida, who's playing about as well as anybody in the conference. And then they do get Arkansas at home in the regular season. So Alabama kind of has that free win that Tennessee doesn't have. But besides that, a lot of hard games for both teams. And it's what Tennessee would want. They're right in here, a chance to control their own destiny, playing the team, the 2 teams that are closest to them in the standings in the last 2 weeks. It should be a lot of fun.
There you go. It's going to be a wild race ahead. You can go and find all of our coverage over on RockyTopInsider.com. We're talking about Tennessee's win against Texas A&M. We're talking about what lies ahead with the SEC race. There's a lot of content over there, so make sure you go and check it out. Ryan, any other final thoughts on the game today?
No, that's all I got.
There we go. That's all we got as well. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler. Thank you so much for listening to the Rocky Top Insider postgame show. Again, Tennessee defeats Texas A&M by a score of 86-51 right here in Thompson Bowling Arena. We'll see you back for the next one. Auburn comes to Rocky Top next week.